Now that we've baselined on the interface workflow, it's time to delve into the video editor and start using it in a bit of anger. The first thing I'm going to do is do a basic edit or a trim. You highlight the thumbnail, right click it, and you can get the trim dialog. When you see this trim dialog, you first have the urge to want to resize it because it's so small compared to the rest of the real estate. But you can't, it's fixed. So let's go through the workflow of this dialog box. You've got the video canvas. You have here the timeline itself of that video canvas, the clip at the size, in other words. This is the endpoint of that video canvas. Now you can move around using the zoom, the playback, the jogger, to go to the frame that you want to mark that endpoint, which you use the leading bracket for. Once you've marked the endpoint, you have to repeat the whole process to mark the out point, which you use the closing bracket. So that's the workflow of what you have to do. Now, given the size of this window, and let's assess this, the size of this dialog is at least a third of the entire workspace. It's a small workspace. It feels like the person who designed this is someone who likes to use 10-foot chopsticks to do everything, because that's what you need in here. It's so fiddly, it's terrible. It's a very bad workflow here. I just can't say anything more than that. For a company that makes normally things easy, this is just ridiculous. But that's not the only way you can do the trim. You can drop the actual clip onto the timeline, and then you can hit the multi-trim video. Now when you click that, you get a bigger dialog, which again is not resizable, but you still have that fiddly process of trying to locate the actual frame you want. So this part of the workflow, I would say, is not as good as it should be, and it certainly should have been able to resize the window. But this aspect, these added features, are quite good. And one thing I do know is if you did do a multi-trim scenario here, you can play those various mini clips or sub clips that you've done to mimic playing a whole clip. So I do like that aspect, but the window, the workflow, not so much. So here is me using the tool in anger. And again, to compare that to this size, it's just quite ridiculous. So I'm not as happy with this as I could have been or should have been. So I'm now going to do the next stage. And the next stage is what I call enhancement. I have a clip where Shepard is walking along the Normandy as he's going to the cockpit. As you can see here, the color is a bit on the dull side. I would put that down to 2007, but BioWare wanted this military type of atmosphere within this Alliance warship. So I want to liven it up, make it more vibrant. So I'm going to use whatever facilities they have. Now Corel have a lot of these balloon type things, which if you drop into a box, you get choices of what you can do, and they give you a before and an after, but not enough tweaks to be able to subtly adjust this. The other thing I didn't like so much is when you actually look at the controls you have for the primary functions, these one here, there's a smidgen of all movements, and it has a massive effect on the actual screen. Again, it reminds me of that fiddly 10-foot chopstick scenario where everything is just far too fiddly and far too sensitive. But if you do persevere with all of this, you do have the whole set of functions. You've got the things that the eye is most sensitive to, which is hue, saturation, brightness, and contrast is the most saturated things that you want to be doing. These presets can be quite drastic, and if you use them, it throws out whatever you set here. But it does set these things. And you might want to do that as a start, like a preset, and then move it, but it's just too fiddly. This tone adjustment I found is a bit on the slow side. I do not know why, but it is a bit sluggish. But as I said before, if you persevere with this, and you really have to be a bit of a masochist, but if you do persevere, you can get the results. But I'm not too sure, given that Corel's got a reputation of making life easy, that they've done that here, and they needed to do that. You need either more wizards to put it right, and you need things like simple things like the curves, so you can just adjust the shadows and make the controls a bit bigger and not so sensitive. But as you can see, you can get the results. But it was far too much hard work here. Far too much hard work. We're now ready to do the next test, which is the special effects test. Here I have the biometric scanner, and it mimics trying to ID your fingerprints, and when it does, it will give you the ID of the person where it says insert your photo. I'm going to change this subtly, and I'm going to put a video clip in its place rather than a still. So first I'm going to resize it to 16 seconds. Second, I want to find the point where I want that video to come in. Now with Corel, this is an easy process. You use the overlay track, you place it in, and it is what I like about it. It automatically resizes it to be slightly smaller than the background, and then what you can do is then start resizing the picture-in-picture element. And it's a very easy process. As you can see what I'm doing now, you just grab hold of it, you can easily resize it, and then you can do whatever effects you want on that part of the clip. I did find, like in this case here, you couldn't do some of the things like VideoStudio made very easy. You do need this sub clip in the front so as it can actually do that transition you want. But overall, the editor is very responsive and it is very nice to use, except for the trimming, multi-trimming aspect. So you've got another dichotomy here. Some things that you'd have thought should be very easy are not, and some things that where in some editors it's difficult, it's very easy here, and that's not what you want within any application. But it's now time to judge the editor. The media process, well, again, I'm in a dichotomy, because if you've got the hardware and you use the hardware option, it will pass with flying colors and it's a very efficient application. If you haven't though, getting hold of technical support, well, best of luck, because I found it very hard and annoying. The interface is it's foxy, it's smooth, but as you saw with the trimming exercise, I think it's a bit touchy, but you do feel like the conductor most of the time. I do believe it does need to have the media process re-looked at, but it's a 4-star application in my view because of that. If they were able to get something done there, and they are in charge of their own encoder, which is thumbs up for, I think this application will be a star application. It's well suited for the target that it's aimed at.